it's very like interrogation style. Like, you know, fucked up, right? Damn.
At first, then you're gonna forget it's there.
All right, sure.
Already.
I'm saying I wasn't even there. I don't even know what y'all talk about. Yeah, so growing up, I really, really loved comic books, like a lot. And watching like the animated Spider-Man X-Men series that was just casually, or like it was a regular thing on TV at a certain age for certain people. And you know, going to the comic book shops and seeing like Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man and like Frank Miller, like Spawn and Batman shit. I'm like, this is hard. Like, what is, and then like the stories is great. I know I'm on a tangent, but I love comic books and shit. I wanted to make comics. I used to draw my own comics and stuff. And like, this sounds foul, but in hindsight, it kind of like works out beautifully. My mom did let me go to art school. For reasons that she later explained to me. It kind of works out. I understand her now. But she didn't let me go to art school. And I got accepted to Aviation High School in Queens, which some people in Queens don't even know that shit exists. But when you drive by, it has a bunch of planes outside. So I went to the orientation and they had a Douglas A4 Skyhawk, which is a fighter jet outside. And I'm like, y'all gonna let me play with a fighter jet? And the teacher looked at me like a jerk. He's like, play with the fighter jet. You got to do jobs on it. You got to fix it. Like, this isn't no play stuff. So I'm like, oh, word? All right. I still planned on transferring out of the school, but about 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, I was holding half of a built plane that I built from like aluminum sheet metal at 14. And I'm just like, yo, I never done nothing like this in my life. There's all these different types of engines that can be put on this one plane. And then there's all these different types of planes and variations. It felt like Pokemon damn near. It's like, I want to know all these evolutions of the 737 and like the different classes of the F-15. You know what I'm saying? Like the shit became like collecting cars. It's like, oh. And then once you get to know the black people in the shit, once I get to know like, oh, the Tuskegee Airmen went to my high school. Like I got to meet two of them at my graduation and they told me I'm a credit to our race. I said, excuse me, sir, with all due respect, you fought Nazis and racism with a hand-me-down. I ain't do shit but graduate high school. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. But just seeing all of that, it was kind of like, all right, this is like a new Marvel for me to fall into. Like, all right, let me find out all these characters, get to know all these weird people in this building with all these experiences. And like, even down to how my Alpha collab came together. Like when they reached out to me, most people don't really even know I was in aviation like that. A lot of people who know me personally know that I used to fix planes, but I don't make it like such a known conversation. But when they reached out to me, it was like a jolt in my head. One of my teachers, old dude from Queens, he taught propellers in my high school. And he always talk about how he got drafted into Nam. He hated that shit. He was like, nigga, I was minding my business, playing my trumpet. Fucking bitches, here they go. Gonna draft me. He was crazy teacher, crazy old dude, but Vietnam dude. Not crazy in a bad way, but eccentric. And he will always kind of speak to how he went to Vietnam, and while he was there, as much as he had to be involved in so many horrible things, he knew that at the very least, he had his people with him. And although being a part of something so negative, they found their pride together. I mean, I know dudes in the hood or dudes' uncles who were also in Vietnam. So I got to see what that looks like when it doesn't click and you don't come back with this skill that you can apply. Like how my teacher was able to come back and teach us how to fix shit and how to help me make a living. So kind of thinking about that, this was kind of something so easy to have to do. The Pan-African side of what my upbringing was, the things I got to learn as a kid, the things I got to see and the people I got to be around. And, you know, just the people who kind of helped me through my aviation journey as people, not just as my teachers, really just taught me a lot about being in a place that may not want you, but may want to use you, and how to navigate through that and come out and still hold on to qualities of yourself. So I started Western Elders in 2017. At the time, I was kind of going between fixing fighter jets and fixing trains for Amtrak. And I wanted it to be a salvage denim brand. But, you know what I'm saying? I don't know nobody in Asia like that. I don't got the bread. So I figured if I scale back, start in a different space, I could always work my way up to doing salvage. So I'm like, you know what? Let's start making the brand, figure it out. Going through like trying to find a graphic designer, I'm realizing that I want to tell the story about me growing up in New York and growing up in Ghana back and forth. So now I'm stuck at this point where I'm like, damn, I want to tell this intimate ass story, but I have to find a way to describe it to somebody and then hope they can capture that in imagery. So it's like, do I lean on that or do I just try my best to put that shit together myself? When the idea for the brand came to me, the things that kind of were playing in my mind and moments in my life that kind of flash back, a lot of nostalgia and just things of being around my family, being around my community, whether it be in New York or whether it be in Ghana, just the things that helped me understand myself in this world and things that helped me feel prideful in myself regardless of what the situation was. And just understanding that, you know, the core value that the brand was built on is a value, tribal value we call Sankofa, which is, when you look at the illustration of the symbol, it's a bird placing its egg on its wings. And that's to symbolize your elders showing you where you came from. Because without knowing your beginning point, you could never really get to your destination. The name kind of just literally spoke itself to me. You know, it wasn't anything that I like sat down and was like super duper intentional about. But once it said itself to me, I was like, yo, that's perfect. Because, you know, I grew up between West Africa and the Western world. And in this brand, I'm trying to pay respect to my elders in both of those places. So that's why the model was built by Africa, made in New York. So as far as the ideas and the values are always going to be African. It's always going to be that core tie to what's kept us so close to remixing that dish every time we got moved along and remixing those things that we love and those things that are close to us every time we moved along. But made in New York is more so the silhouettes and the fits and the types of pieces I make. Growing up, just in the family that I grew up in and kind of where we grew up in Ghana, where my family's from, just some of the things I was exposed to at an early age and just understanding who I am and understanding the importance of the country and its relevance to Pan-Africanism and how, but just understanding the idea that the rest of the Black world had of Ghana. It gave me a large sense of pride from a very, very young age. But then also finding that same sense of pride in my neighborhood in New York. Like, I'm from Left Rack City, Queens. To a lot of people, it's not, nowadays, it's not so known the way it used to be. But I tell people, if you weren't deep in the hood, doing some shit you had no business doing, or if you weren't nice at ball, you wouldn't know my neighborhood. So it's like, I'm grateful I got to be on the inside of communities that I feel like people don't always get a look at and people may have a misunderstanding of, but I get to come out of them and tell this beautiful story and shine a light on them and say, yo, as much as you may feel like this is something to overlook, this is some of the most beautiful things in the world right here in front of you. The way the community looked out for each other was very, very special. And like, you know, we have a basketball tournament still to this day. And there's a dude named Wise who runs a tournament. And I remember being, 10, 11, and coming outside and hooping. And somebody asking me, yo, you on the team yet? And I'm like, what? A team? Nah, here you go. Meet me here this time. We got practice. I'm like, what? Never paid $1 for a jersey, for training, for refs. When we had tournaments, they drove us there. I may have had a couple dollars for food, but they made sure we was good. None of these people, my family. These are the neighborhood guys, quote unquote. You know what I'm saying? The same people that people walk through my neighborhood and look sideways at. You know, there's like a lot of scar tissue there. And it's very, very easy for people to misunderstand each other in this conversation. And I tell people I got to live Coming to America and I got to live Juice. I got to go inside the house and it's Coming to America. I go outside and it's Juice. So it's a kind of a hard transition, but I've been able to navigate both sides to the point where I can make the cast of Juice feel comfortable on the set of Coming to America, as much as they feel like they have no place there, which we all know that that's home. But at the same time, the cast of Coming to America is often on the set of Juice and feeling this disconnection. But I've been grateful enough to have a situation to show me that it may not be as widespread as it could be, but we have these pockets where that exists here, where your home is here too, and you don't have to feel like you're so far from that community or so distant from your people. Becoming all the different types of rice and peas around the world. It's just like, all right, if we could remix this like this, how can I not live on both sides of this world and find a way to remix my dialect and put it in a way that the person who feels like I'm afraid of this venture to Africa, I'm afraid of understanding this place, make them feel super comfortable to just walk in the same way they would coming into my home. The same way I've brought many of my friends from the neighborhood who have come and had my grandmother's jollof, and it's like, oh, word, like I can go see Auntie Mary, and it's not even a thing. If I see her in the streets, I know it's love. So just that understanding of both sides of this culture and both sides of this community, I've tried my best, and I think I'm doing a pretty okay job, let the people tell it, at bridging those two worlds and making the bridge easier to cross. People's probably the toughest. I think, perception of what a lot of this is. And I think like some people who knew me before I really had a brand looked at me like, and kind of watched me make a brand, was like, bro, you fix planes. You already do some different shit. Like, why you got to crowd this lane now, in a sense? I kind of like felt a little bit of that. But I think it's just, like one day on one of my walks, I'm thinking to myself about planes and World War II and like the atomic bomb and shit. And I'm like, damn, like a dude like Issey Miyake had radiation poisoning, right? From one of those bombs. A lot of people don't know that. I think it's like a more popularly known thing now. I saw it on the internet not too long ago pop up, but he had radiation poisoning. And him, who is miles and miles and miles away from where that bomb dropped, right? He's the one who lives to tell the story. So as much as it feels like people have been the toughest part of the journey sometimes, it's like I had to realize that I have to kind of be like a bomb in a sense. Those people standing close don't really know what happened. But the people far away, if I can make them feel that, the people standing next to me, it's gonna be a little hard for them to understand what I got going on. But if I can make them over there see what's up, then I did some shit. Damn, I'm getting in a nerd wormhole. But the same way Thor had the vision and struck the sarcophagus to like give him energy and make him pop. It's the same thing. Your vision is your vision. Like, you can't fault people for not understanding where you're going. So when somebody sees that shit, you gotta be mad grateful that somebody's even like, yo, I see the play. I see the play. Because that's your blessing. That's your play to get. That's your sight. You know what I mean? So it's like having to understand that rather than like that people around you won't get it. It's that people, period, won't get it. It's for you to get. It's for you to keep doing that shit. It's like, people talk about like locking their hair or growing their hair, and you get to that like awkward stage. I never grew my hair out. So this is even funny for me to be saying. But I hear people say this shit all the time. That you get to this awkward stage, you just got to go through it. And like your first few posts or releases, that's kind of like when you first seen with your twist or whatever. And it's like, oh, you about to start locking your shit. Yo, it's lit. Big up you, blah, blah, blah. It's all love. But when you get to the weird part, they kind of like, oh, that's only a few months later. I just got started. But then when your locks is fully grown or whatever, it's like, damn, yo, are you related to the Marley? All types of dumb shit now. It's like, what the fuck? So it's definitely true that like it sucks to have to go on the road trip and get lit and then come back and get popping in your home city. But it works like that for some people. I mean, I wouldn't say like the city don't fuck with me, but I think it's just like people. It's like this journey makes people uncomfortable in the same way that it makes us uncomfortable. Word, even in making the brand, I have a shirt with 2 kids pounding fufu, right? And I did that because I'm like, yo, facts. That's lit, nigga. That was me. That's crazy. And I remember like vending somewhere and somebody like, oh my God, I love this shirt. Like, this shit is so hard. And I'm like, yeah, where are you from? They're like, oh yeah, I'm from Nigeria. They're like, I'm like, oh yeah, does this remind you of when you was a kid and blah, blah, blah. Like, oh yeah, I've actually never been to Nigeria. And I was like, oh, wow, that's great. That's great to know that the same elation that this young lady who's never been to experience this in person, for me, who literally designed it from like feeling like this was me peering into my own memory, can feel the same exact way. So that was when I knew. I was like, all right, good job, bro. Good job, bro. Every 4th of July, right? You got folks going to Old Navy and like there's families in different states buying there's a t-shirt they do every year. It's like an American flag. It says Old Navy and it has the year. And they'll go and cop it for the whole family. You can go in there, buy hot dog t-shirts, all types of shit, all types of random American culture. But it gets to a point where it's like, yo, when am I gonna be able to just get some shit that represents me? I'm over here representing something else. Like, I don't really want to wear that flag. You know what I'm saying? That's not a vibe to me. I wish I could find something with my flag. That used to be so tough growing up. Couldn't find shit about Ghana. But now I'm in a space where I can make that possible. I don't have to, I see the void. Let me just be the solution. Instead of, not to say looking for somebody else to save me, because that's not even the case. But in a way, that's what happens. You come up and follow these brands, and it's like, no knock to some of these creators, because you get to maybe sometimes meet some of the people behind the brand and some of the people who make some of these ideas, and you can understand why these things came out and why some of these things came to be. But I shouldn't be having to buy Black Panther stuff from Supreme. That's ridiculous to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, that kind of don't make no sense. It's cool. It could look nice all at once, but I should be able to buy that shit and find it in abundance from somebody who understands why that should be put together, or somebody who's going to take that money and put it in somewhere where it needs to be, or somebody who's taking that money and invested in telling stories that promote the things that matter to us and promote the things that we stand for and the things that we align with, I guess you could say. Been working on honing the story, figuring out how to properly stand behind my motto and stand behind all of my core values that I set for the brand, and more so represent the things that, when the idea for the brand came to me, the things that kind of were playing in my mind and moments in my life that kind of flash back, a lot of nostalgia and just things of being around my family, being around my community, whether it be in New York or whether it be in Ghana, just the things that helped me understand myself in this world, and things that helped me feel prideful in myself regardless of what the situation was. And just understanding that, the core value that the brand was built on is a value, a tribal value we call Sankofa, which is, when you look at the illustration of the symbol, it's a bird placing its egg on its wings. And that's to symbolize your elders showing you where you came from. Because without knowing your beginning point, you can never really get to your destination. So if you don't know where you started, you really got to go back to the core and really understand, hey, all of these things in my life kind of led me to this point. Like, I heard I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson said it once, is uh, the sum total of your experiences led you to this moment. You know what I'm saying? So there's no reason to change anything. Just lean into those things and kind of follow those things that kind of made me even want to do this in the first place. And that's kind of all I've been doing. I mean, thank God, still working. Shit a little tough, but I think, you know, I'm doing something very special and I'm seeing the fruits of it. And I'm happy to just be in this space and like talk my shit. I used to have fuel and cuts on my hands and hydraulic fluid and shit. And now I get to talk about being happy about being black. So that's kind of fucking lit.
That's fire. You said